fitting in the shoes of Eleni is not easy, especially when you are not a woman. You know, because because you know Eleni is a woman. Secondly, she probably was more prepared to moderate the session than I was, but I'll do my best. So, panelists, you've had the introductory remarks made by the high table. So we are going to proceed as follows. I'll be posing questions, prepared questions to each of you, actually one question each of you. Then depending on how you respond, I will follow up with additional questions. Then we'll also invite the audience to ask questions and then you can respond. So that's how the session is going to be run. So I'll begin with Joachim. What lessons do international centers of knowledge working in Africa and in development in general draw from the last decade of growth or absence of growth in Africa? How should they position themselves to support and help accelerate the current pace of growth in Africa? You have about 5 minutes to respond.
Well, thank you. Thank you for inviting me on this panel and for this challenging question. I think looking back, it's clear that clearly stating goals and following up on them made a big difference, made the big difference for growth in general and agriculture growth in particular in Africa. So the crisp set of goals under CAADP on public expenditure and achieving the 6% growth rate did make a difference, especially where implementation, as we have just heard in the keynote, was following through. I think I don't need to add much to what has been said on the growth diagnostics from the high table before. I would like to focus my remarks a bit on the future and how to make growth sustainable, and where it has not yet accelerated, how to accelerate. First, I think we need to recognize that the global economy currently is in irritation, and Africa may feel that in different ways. The slowdown in Asia, in China, will matter for the nature of externally driven growth forces. But I think Africa can deal with that by tapping into the growth potentials it has itself. So I think an appropriate African response to the current irritations and slowdown of general economic growth in middle-income countries, I think is very important for the future growth strategy of Africa. Given the level of integration of Africa and the rest of the world economy, this matters. Secondly, coming closer to the agriculture growth issues, in the future African agricultural growth will continue to depend on good seeds, a good fertilizer, protection of soils, financing, cooperation, moving mechanization, but it will much more depend on people, on human resources, on investment in people, especially in farmers. And farmers which are trained not just short-term, not just through the cell phone, not just through extension services, but who will be in farmer schools, who will be certified farmers. Vocational training will be absolutely essential. Otherwise, the investments in the science system will not pay off. They are also needed. Investment in high science related to accelerated agricultural growth with the strengthened African universities and academies will be central to a sustained growth process. It goes together with the trained farmers. The next generation of farmers need to have access to farm knowledge. Moving towards middle income status, as is being stated in the theme of this conference, of this ReSAKSS meeting, has another fundamental change in driving growth patterns. From poor countries, people do not migrate. From rich countries, people do not migrate much. From middle-income countries, people migrate. The inclination to migrate and having the capability to migrate increases with per capita income, from about 5% of population share to 15–20%. So moving to middle income status by 2030 or so will mean lots of more people in Africa will move across borders within Africa and outside Africa. And agriculture and rural growth will foster that process. It requires good economy-wide policies to make best use of that migration so that remittances are well invested, so that people move into productive employments within countries and across countries, and that out of that migration pressure will not come stress and political disturbances. Lastly, let me emphasize that the growth agenda needs to be, easily said, good growth. Because only good growth, economy-wide, sustainable, equity-oriented will serve the human well-being, health, and nutrition in the continent. In that respect, the connection between agriculture and industry and the value chains need to change. African agriculture should, over the next few decades, line up itself towards what we call bioeconomy, with strong industrial clusters, not just value chains, but value webs. It's not just a commodity transforming value chain which brings the value added into the economy close to farmers. The bioeconomy integrates across value chains, across energy, new raw materials, new fiber production, more processing. In the last few years, in the last 4 years, more than 30 countries, many of which are middle-income countries, have written themselves bioeconomy strategies. So far, only 2 African countries. I argue that in the next few years, more African countries should take a hard look at a science and innovation-based bioeconomy strategy moving beyond agriculture growth to economy-wide growth. Thank you.